cell cycle, part 1. All right, so we want to look at the cell cycle and how we actually get new cells. How do we make new cells? What is happening here? So you have, in this picture, you can see you have one cell becoming two different cells. All right. And, well, let's go back up here. So the main purpose of this is for, as you can see in the notes, it says the propagation of the lineage, maintaining the lineage. So maintaining an exact copy of that, or sending along the genetic information. Okay, so passing that along from one generation to the next. And so basically, we call the cell cycle, we could call it a cell life history, basically. So what we have is, with cell division, we have a parent cell, and then you end up with what's considered two exact copies of it, and we call them daughter cells. They are the offspring cells, and they're genetically identical. So the daughter cells are genetically identical to each other and to the previous parent cell. So it's going to make an exact copy of the previous cell. So after cell division, so that's in cell division that takes place. So the cell cycle occurs, involves cell division, and then it includes maturation. So the maturity after the division. So in that time, the cells are growing and they're being able to perform their adult functioning in there. Just like how humans, we mature, we get older, and then we're able to perform our functions. The reproduction of the cell is also necessary for normal growth. So for organs to grow, for repair of existing structures, and the reproduction is required, that process requires that DNA replication take place. You have to make an exact copy of it. DNA can be thought of as the $1 million blueprint. Underline that. That's what we call it, the $1 million blueprint. You want exact copies. So the human genome, you hear people talk about the human genome. This is the entire genetic material, all of the DNA for an organism. My genome is different than your genome. The genome of a human is different than the genome of a plant. Is anything that's living has their own genome. And the genome are like the blueprints, and they, again, vary from species to species. In human, the genome length is about 2 meters, or about 7 feet per cell. That's a lot. That's all your genetic material. It's incredible. DNA has 2 different appearances or different states within a cell, and it depends on what's happening. So we talked about these already, the chromatin versus chromosomes. That chromatin looking like a spaghetti kind of look. It's not organized. It's just all the genetic material wrapped up in. And we just said it's about 7 feet per cell. We're talking about something microscopic, and there is so much DNA in it that there's about 7 feet of it within the cell. That is huge. It is huge. Okay, so this is the loose state of DNA. The DNA noodles can be moved around to find the gene segments needed for protein synthesis. Chromosomes, these are the chromosomes. So once they tightly coil around those histone proteins, they look kind of like this pasta noodle here. And they are for dividing equally, because now it's organized and you can pull these apart equally. So here, this is the DNA. Here's your DNA. Here's these histone proteins that we talked about. And so what happens is the DNA is going to wrap itself around this histone protein and coil up so that you have this nicely shaped chromosome afterwards. And then this is during duplication. So here's your parent cell, and you have these two separating, and you have what's called daughter cells, and they are an exact copy of the original. Well, I don't know where that's at. Okay, so I don't see anything else in here. But let's talk about this. So the somatic cells, the word soma means body. The somatic cells are your normal body cells. So these are everything other than the sex cells. So your liver cell, your heart cell, all of those, your bone cells, your blood cells, everything. Those are your somatic cells. Put down some of those write down some of those in your notes there so that you have an idea of the difference. This makes up the majority of the organism. The chromosome number is, we describe that as diploid. And it's also described as 2N. So that, I don't see that anywhere on here. That 2N, that they get N from mom, N from dad. So haploid is just the N. So write N equals haploid. And you can see that. You don't have to write it. You can see that in the next line. Half is haploid. And then diploid is the whole chromosome. Okay. And so that's getting half of your information in sperm, half of it is in the egg. So you're getting half from mom, half from dad. For humans, this is 46 is your diploid number. So we have 23 chromosomes, but we have, 23 pair of chromosomes. So we have a total of 46. So our 2N number, our diploid number is 46. Our N is 23. So again, we get 23 from mom, 23 from dad. So N is sperm, N is egg. All right, and then like we said, the histones, those are the proteins here. See, these are proteins that the DNA coils up around in order to condense so that it can divide. And then here, looking at these sister chromatids, tid means portion. So the portion of the whole duplicated chromosome after the DNA is replicated. So these are the sister, you have this sister chromatid and this sister chromatid, and that's how we refer to them, as sister chromatids. So it's half of the duplicated chromosome. Another thing that's real important to look at here is what's called the centromere. And so the centromere right here in this central part is where that's the center unit. It's a group of proteins, and when at this centromere right here, this is where, when we talked about that there's centrioles, animal cells have centrioles that give out spindle fibers. Those spindle fibers are going to attach to that centromere right here, and when we pull these apart, it's going to get pulled apart from that centromere. All right, and the last thing from these notes is talking about the actual word mitosis. And this is talking about the replication, the making copies of ordinary cell division. We're talking about the somatic cells. We're talking about, not the somatic cells. We're just talking about the cell division. So when we're looking at the cell cycle, mitosis is making a copy of those. You have a parent cell and daughter cells that you end up with that are genetically alike. And this involves only one division after replication. Mitosis occurs in the somatic cells, in the body cells. The point that it has here involves only one division, and it's occurring in the S phase. This is because when we talk about meiosis, that's the replication of the sex cells, okay? So mitosis is occurring in the body cells, in the somatic cells, and you're going to have one division that takes place, okay? And it's going to take place in the S phase, which is the synthesis. Next to S, underneath or wherever you want to write it, write synthesis. And that's what we're going to do there. All right, we're almost done. There we have it.